Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
what do you call an ordinary android?
I don't know. What do you call it?
Regla man. Hello and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I couldn't come up with a good one.
It's more than the joke being funny, it's just the way you started laughing in the middle of delivering it was really funny.
Regla man.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh, when are they gonna come out with Regla man ABC 17?
Never.
You're right. That's about right. Yeah. I just couldn't come up with a good, mix of the two games, which, as you know, is my usual joke MO. So I was like, let's just lean into the worst joke I could tell. Regla man.
Ordinary man.
Oh, that would have been better. Dang it. It doesn't sound like Mega Man, though, so I dock points for
true.
that.
Usually that doesn't matter to you, though.
Oof. I'm your deeply, put in your place host, Madelyn.
I'm your harsh judger of humor host, Emma.
And thanks for tuning in. This week, as you maybe picked up on from what could charitably be classified as a joke, we're going to be talking about Mega Man and Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Yep.
So yeah, you've probably heard, when I mentioned this to my roommate and blog partner, I don't know. He was like, oh yeah, I've heard of Mega Man and I haven't heard of Ori. So if you're in the same boat, you're like me, just a couple of months ago. I had heard of Ori because it just came out. The new one.
A couple of months ago.
Time is fluid right now.
Yeah, that's true.
What other game? There have been 5 other games that have come out in that
came
time
out
period.
5 days ago and 40 years ago.
Speaking of games that, actually Mega Man was not as old as I thought it was in my mind. But speaking of games that are old, let's kick it off with our old game, Mega Man.
It's pretty old, I say. It's alienating all of our older viewers.
Alienating everyone
listeners.
who is a millennial. No, Mega Man, the original Mega Man was released from the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987. Yes. I just really thought Mega Man was an arcade game first.
Yeah, no, it is not.
It's actually Capcom's, at least according to what I read, the first game that Capcom made that was actually specifically geared toward the home console market. As opposed to being an arcade game that they then later brought to the home console market.
That makes sense.
But I don't know, I just didn't, I guess it's, how long ago is 1987 now? I guess it is coming up, it's 33 years. So it's actually not that far away from 40 years ago. Am I making you feel old yet, listeners who are in your 30s? You're welcome. But the first one came out from the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987. It's from Capcom. And you've probably heard of Mega Man, right? Mega Man is one of the, slate of a dozen or so video game characters that I feel like everyone has heard of. And you might not be able to quite identify Mega Man if you're not into gaming even a little bit, but you might. He's not quite as ubiquitous as Pikachu, I think.
Yeah.
In terms of identity.
Or Mario.
Or maybe Link, although Link deals with the Zelda thing, which is definitely a tricky one.
People can identify what series Link is from.
Right.
Just maybe not his name.
So he's not quite in the tier with Pikachu and with Mario and with Link Zelda. But Mega Man is up there as an identifiable video game character for the masses.
I was reading that his design is somewhat based on Astro Boy, which as soon as I read that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can see it.
It is based on that, unless you're the person that drew the cover for the North American release.
Oh, man. I find that so interesting in that, like, you see this with, like, a lot of games from that era, like, the beginning of, like, home console stuff, in that, like, I guess anime-style art in any form just wasn't seen as marketable over in the West. You get these, like, kind of horrifying, like, pseudo-photorealistic / Western comic book style.
They look like the cover of
covers?
Choose Your Own Adventure books.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Which is that's not necessarily a relatable reference, but it is for me.
Except maybe a little worse. And the original Mega Man's cover art for the West is a particular showcase.
I'll come back to it in a minute. Let me set the stage first, because, yeah, it's bad. This might be one to share on the social media this week, just so everyone gets to look on it in all its glory. Because it's really a sight. It's really a sight. I'll leave it at that. So in the Mega Man games, look, first of all, I did not realize, one, how many Mega Man games there are.
Oh, yeah.
And two, how many different, intricate continuities there are to Mega Man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this is some Kingdom Hearts nonsense.
Except it's worse, because it has, like, 4 different timelines, and 3 of them aren't even finished yet.
3 of them will never be finished.
Well, maybe that's true for the classic one. Mega Man 11 didn't come out too long ago.
Yeah, but they'll never finish the classic one.
That's true.
Like, that one won't be finished just because, theoretically they'll keep making Mega Man games. But Mega Man X and ZX? XZ?
ZX is finished.
No. 0 is finished.
Oh,
ZX.
okay.
Listeners,
I was thinking about Legends. I forgot there was 0.
Listeners, you're getting the idea, right? You are. There's a lot of Mega Man games.
I think Legends is one that will, like, never be finished. Or is it Legacy?
Yeah, there are all these collections that have been released. Those are the most, which I think are the...
No, there's the most recent, the most far-flung in the future Mega Man series.
Right.
Mega Man Legends.
Right.
That one they've, like, said that they aren't working on anymore.
I mean, they've said that about a lot of them, though. They've been denying that there's going to be an X9 for years, and they will eventually probably make one.
Well, in the Legends case, they canceled the 3rd game in 2011.
Fair enough.
So, that one seems a little dead in the water.
Anyway.
But you're right, when you got so many Mega Mans,
Mega Man?
who knows they're just going to make a new series before they finish. I don't know, I was searching on Google for, like, how many... I just searched Mega Man, and one of the questions was, how many Mega Man are there? Which I found really funny. How many Mega Man are there?
Is it Mega Mans or Mega Men, though?
I mean, it would be Mega Men. That's just how the language works.
Though?
Yeah, that's just how English works.
Humans.
Okay.
It's not human.
But it's... Mega is separate from man.
I know. I'm just being difficult at this point.
You are.
Anyway, I started to explain the game, and then I got distracted by the hundreds of Mega Men games. So in the original Mega Man, you play as Mega Man, surprise, originally known as Rock.
Yep.
And in Japan, the series is... I cannot imagine the series in Japan is still known as Rockman.
No, I don't think so.
But was originally known as Rockman, because there are a lot of music-based puns in the Mega Man series. Some original, some weirdly added in localization. Did you read about the Guns N' Roses bosses?
No, tell me about it.
In Mega Man X5, just apparently, like, the guy who was in charge of localization was a big Guns N' Roses fan, and he let his wife work on some of the localization. And because she knew he was a big Guns N' Roses fan, instead of, naming the bosses like the normal kind of, they were like animal themed or something in X5 in Japan, they all got named after members of Guns N' Roses.
Oh.
So, anyway, a lot of music puns in the Mega Man universe, but zooming back into the thing I've been trying to explain now for the last 10 minutes. You play as Mega Man. You're a robot. I'll go into Madelyn's lore corner in a minute. But you have, like, your Mega Blaster, I think it's called. No, Mega Buster. Excuse me. Mega Blaster would be too straightforward. Your Mega Buster cannon. And you jump around, being a robot, fighting other evil robots, basically. And platforming, and if you're me, doing a generally poor job of shooting at the robots. The original NES Mega Man, I was hoping it would be on the Switch, because what do I pay for Switch Online for, if not Mega Man, on the NES? But it's not, but you can play it pretty easily, emulated for free online. And folks, I did that. That was the game that I played for this week's episode. I did not play Ori because, as we'll talk about, I do not have a system on which I can play Ori and the Will of the Wisps. But I did play some Mega Man. And in Mega Man, one of the kind of innovative things about the game is that you get to choose in which order you fight these evil robots, these robots gone bad, which was, as you can imagine, in an arcade world, not really the thing. So I saw some articles that were talking about how, like, Mega Man kind of started the side quest and started that open world thing. And I was like, interesting. Hold your horses there a little bit, but interesting idea, like germ of an idea.
I mean, you can extrapolate that from anything in that it's introducing some non-linearity, I guess, to games. And then you can say that from starting non-linearity, you can extrapolate out to all the way the games are non-linear now. But it maybe is a little bit of a reach.
Anyway, Mega Man is basically Red Dead Redemption 2, is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. It is exactly the same as Red Dead Redemption 2.
By which I mean you can pick from, I think it's 6 different robots to fight in whatever order. And if you beat each robot, Mega Man kind of takes on their powers. So there's like Iceman and no, it's the Ice Master. No, they all have man. I'm getting myself confused. The Ice Man and the Electric Man. And anyway, when I tried to play Cut Man and Ice Man, did not get to the boss in either one before I got frustrated. Mega Man cannot shoot overhead, which I found to be difficult with flying enemies that I could not seem to jump at the right time to kill. Cutman I had a really hard time with. Iceman I feel like I figured out a strategy for the first 30 seconds, telling you how good I am at this game. I figured out the first 30 seconds. And then after that was like, yeah, don't need any more of this.
The point of this non-linearity, though, is that by taking on those powers, the next boss you choose, if you beat Iceman and then you go to Fireman, you can use Iceman's powers or Iceman's weapon on Fireman and it'll do more damage. So the whole strategy of it is defeating the bosses in a optimal order, sort of.
I did feel a lot better when I went back and once I'd played the game, I read more about it and saw that it's considered Nintendo hard. And I was like, excellent. I'm allowed to be bad at this game. It's before my time. I'm a coddled kid who's never known a difficult game.
Did you check if any of these were on the Wikipedia's 100 best video games list?
I don't think it's 100. But
just whatever.
Let me take a look.
However many it is.
I'll look now. Talk to me about something about Mega Man.
These are, Mel, and that's an essential service from you. You always have to check.
It wasn't on the page about Mega Man, but we're gonna look. List of video games considered the best. From 19...
Anyway, here's something I didn't know about Mega Man. He has a sister.
Called Roll.
A sister in that I suppose she's created by Dr. Light.
Yeah, what does it mean to be a sister?
That's why you gotta play Nier Automata.
Hey!
Just kidding. But I was very much like, I just did not think that Mega Man had a family, you know. I thought he was sort of like a solitary hero, sort of like Metroid.
Yeah, right. I do
robot.
kind of conflate Mega Man and Samus a little bit.
Except Mega Man is actually a robot, and Samus is just a lady who has a...
Well, in Mega Man ZX, I think he's part robot, part human. But that's not Mega Man. That's like a different robot.
It's a different robot, yeah.
It's not. Mega Man nor Ori, either version, are not on the greatest video games of all time list.
Wow. I feel like someone just didn't want to play all the Mega Man games, whoever curates this list.
It's from, I think it's pulled from a selection of greatest of all time.
I feel like at least one of the Mega Mans has to be one of the greatest video games of all time, considering there's so many. But, oh well. Who am I to argue with a Wikipedia page?
So, to dive in a little bit to Madelyn's lore corner here.
Sure.
So apparently the story is a little bit different in Japan than it is in the US, is
Makes
what I
sense.
read. But the first, just the Mega Man, normal Mega Man series is about, yes, Mega Man, who, like I said, is originally a robot named Rock, who was built by Dr. Light and his assistant Dr. Wily. Be worried about someone whose name is Dr. Wily, but...
I love that name so much.
Like, we'll put that on pause. Like, Dr. Light, good for you for not discriminating based on last name. Appreciate you. Unfortunately, Dr. Wily betrays Dr. Light, turns these 6 robots into evil robots, and is gonna wreak havoc on the world. And Rock, being a justice-driven robot, requests to be turned into a combat unit to fight those robots. Apparently the whole Dr. Wily is Dr. Light's assistant thing is something that occurred in localization, is what I read. But whatever. I'm only ever going to be playing the Western Mega Man, so here we are.
They're scientists who work together.
In Japan, they were rivals. In the United States, Dr. Wily is a disgruntled assistant. Take that as you will.
That's kind of more sympathetic, though, in the West, isn't it?
Isn't
Not
it?
just some rival mad scientist, it's some intern who's had enough with it, Dr. Light.
Anyway, at the end of most of the normal Mega Man games, you fight Dr. Wily in like a super robot machine, basically. And then, just sort of give you a glimpse into all the other Mega Man series, Mega Man X takes place 100 years in the future. By the way, Mega Man takes place in the year 20XX, so we're getting there. Could be this year.
So now we're in 2XXX. It's 100 years later.
Yes. I think it might be 21X. Well, I don't know. I didn't get that into Mega Man X because I was like, I can't do this. This is not the game we're talking about. But it takes place 100 years in the future, and you play as a Mega Man that was lost for 100 years, essentially, that has free will and improved graphics.
And improved graphics.
So,
graphical systems are top-notch.
Anyway, in Mega Man X, you have a sidekick called Zero. That's where the Mega Man Zero series comes from, who fights what Wikipedia called human supremacy forces, which I thought was evocative.
Yeah.
So Zero is the only series that's actually finished, but ZX is kind of a continuation of Zero that happens even further into the future, where they're like robot-human hybrids. And of course, there's just like a ton of other spin-offs that they're like genuinely, I think that there may be over 100 Mega Man games.
There are sure a lot.
Like, there are lots of them. Not that they've put out, like, when did Mega Man 11, I guess Mega Man 11 came out in the past 5 years, right? But
I think 2018?
Yeah. But before that, there was a long time between, there was a long time between Mega Man 10 and Mega Man 11, but there was still a long time between any of these series not complete spin-off games, and a Mega Man game. And apparently the reason they made Mega Man 11 is they put out these kind of collected compilation games, and they sold really well. which is not something that you should, I mean, maybe it is. I guess it drives sales, but, like, it's not something you should say to your fans, I think.
Well, you know, especially with older games like this, you want to make sure there's still a fan base still around.
No,
right?
It's something you should do, and it's something that you should monitor internally, but I don't think you should go on the record enough that I could find it in my, you know, time researching Mega Man, that the reason they made Mega Man 11 is because the series, like the other games, sold well, because all the comments on it were like, Mega Man X sold well, where's X9? Like, all that stuff. Or like, where's my... There's like some kind of Battle Zone one. They're like, I want Battle Zone. I'd buy that. I just don't think you should.
I don't know. I think that any announcement of Mega Man 11 would get those commentaries on there, though.
I know, you're right. I just don't think that you should feed the beast.
I guess so.
But actually, Mega Man has a pretty long history of making fans part of the game. So maybe I'm wrong. In that from Mega Man 2 to Mega Man 8, the bosses, at least some of them, the Robot Masters, were from fan submissions. Which is something that would not fly today. At all, I think.
Well, not all your bosses. I can still see, like, design a character.
Yeah, but these people, like, get, like, a t-shirt and a mug for it.
Oh, that's true.
That's what I'm talking about. I think you could still run that contest, but I think if you're compensating them with a t-shirt and a mug, you would be rightfully roasted.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, you know, obviously it got, like, by Mega Man 7, they got over 200,000 submissions for it, which is crazy.
I did have fun, like, sort of skimming the plot summaries of most of the classic Mega Man, which was always like, Dr. Light and Mega Man are just minding their business. And then Dr. Wily comes in and's like, oh, ho, ho, look what I've done this time. Oh, ho. And then he runs away. And then Mega Man has to go after him. And then in the end, you defeat him and he goes away. He somehow escapes.
Poor Mega Man.
Poor Mega Man. Mega Man, he's done this 11 times now.
Finish the job.
Maybe you should be proactive about it. And just, like, go find him while he's building something. You know?
Yeah,
I
that
think
makes
you have
sense.
probable cause at this point, Mega Man.
Mega Man is not RoboCop, Emma. He doesn't have that kind of authority.
Well, maybe Dr. Light should call himself a RoboCop or something. Because once this man has tried to wreak havoc upon the world 11 times, like, file a restraining order, maybe. I don't know.
Well, did you know there's some, like, really great original name ideas for Mega Man? I have a bunch of development trivia, actually.
Oh, yeah, I liked, Karate. It was like Karate Kid.
Mighty Kid.
Mighty
Knuckle Kid.
Knuckle Kid, that's
and
what I was thinking of.
Rainbow Man, which actually kind of makes sense because he turns different colors when you use different buster cannons or mega busters.
Yeah. I don't think the boys would have taken to Rainbow Man over here.
Probably not. Well, the boys weren't going to take to Rock Man, apparently. They only changed the name because there was some, like, vice president at Nintendo that was like, I think that sounds dumb. How about Mega Man? And they were like, okay. Genuinely,
I mean,
that's
it's
how the
probably
anecdote gets
because
told.
I know what's said, but it's also probably because they just didn't think it was marketable over here.
No, I mean, that's what it boiled down to. Like, the guy didn't think it was marketable, but still, it was not marketable.
And yet he was still fine with the box art.
Yeah. So the box art the Western box art is terrible. So you'll have to take a look at it. Mega Man looks to be about 150 years old. He's in blue and yellow, which is not what his costume looks like in the game. And he carries a pistol, which is not how he shoots.
He looks like an X-Man a little bit.
He does look like an X-Man, because that's kind of like, he's got kind of the X-Men uniform.
Yeah.
I did see, no one has been able to figure out who did that first box art. Rightfully, I hope. That person is laying low. But the second one is not quite as bad, but is still pretty bad. And someone has been able to find that person. who says that like they saw Mega Man, like the box art they were talking about like, okay, how does Mega Man shoot? And what the person told him was like, well, he's not holding a rifle, so it must be a pistol. So the pistol appears in the Mega Man 2 box art as well.
It's not a rifle, so guess it has to be a pistol.
I don't know.
Couldn't be anything else.
Anyway, there are like a bajillion Mega Man games, as I've said like 20 times now, but that almost wasn't the case. Mega Man, despite being critically acclaimed, sold quite poorly. And basically the team wanted to make Mega Man 2, and Capcom was like, okay, that's fine, as long as you also make a game that's going to make some money. So the way they described it was like basically they were working 20-hour days, making 2 games at once, like Mega Man 2 as this passion project. The original team was only 6 people, by the way.
Do you know what else they were making at the same time?
I don't. I couldn't figure that out. Or rather, I didn't do enough research to figure that out. Let's put my cards on the table. But yeah, fortunately, Mega Man 2 sold, like, the best of, any of the Mega Man games for a long time. And after that, Mega Man took off. But yeah, the first game did not sell well, and it sounds like the development process for 2 was just like, God, what a miserable thing. Maybe it would have sold better if it had been called Mighty Kid.
Maybe. You never know.
You just never know. Well, yeah. Mega Man, too hard a game for me. Willing to admit it. I could see the appeal. I did get some of the competitive spirit flowing while I was working on it. Kind of wanting to figure working on it while I was playing it. Oof, Freudian slip. I could see the appeal and wanting to get better at it. I could definitely see myself dying over and over at final bosses, though, in a way that would be less fun.
Maybe you'll have to try one of the newer ones.
Maybe I will. Maybe when Mega Man 12 comes out, that'll be my moment to really dive into the Mega Man series head first.
The Mega Man lore.
Immerse myself. Ah, yes, this time when Mega Man and Dr. Light were chilling, they were drinking a cup of coffee. Does this mean that Mega Man can digest liquids?
Asking the important questions.
Speaking of... Oh, I don't have I was like, is there liquid in Ori?
Ori
and the Will-o'-the-Wisps! Speaking of games that have sequels, one or plural, Ori and the Will-o'-the-Wisps.
Ori and the Will-o'-the-Wisps, which I've definitely just been calling Ori and the Will-o'-Wisps up until now.
It's more like Ori and the Will-o'-the-Wisps.
Yeah.
The official title.
It's also a platformer, like Mega Man. Developed by Moon Studios, published by Xbox Game Studios. And it's the sequel to Ori and the Blind Forest by the same people.
Well,
came out
by 25%
March.
the same people, and 75% the studio is much huger.
Yeah. But it came out in March of this year.
Which is why I had heard of it, because I had seen the title somewhere.
Yeah. I remember when it came out, the reviews, like, obviously reviews come out before the day one patch, usually, for games. Which is usually not a huge issue, because usually your day one patch is just fixing small things. But apparently, I remember seeing that this game had a lot of bugs before the day one patch. Because I think I was probably reading the Kotaku review, and it was like, I don't really feel like I can give this a score right now, because I can't really play it.
Eek.
But after the patch came out, almost all of the reviews were very positive about it.
I mean, I suppose if you're on Game Pass, it is a lot less essential that you get immediately glowing reviews.
Is this already on Game Pass?
I thought so. Yes.
Oh.
I'll confirm that, but I'm pretty...
I mean, I think that Game Pass is the coolest part of Xbox, by far. But I do remember when Blind Forest came out, this was, like, the only game that I saw. I was like, man, I wish I had an Xbox. But, like, not enough to actually buy an Xbox.
Yeah, it actually launched on Game Pass.
I guess that makes sense since it's an Xbox studio.
Mm-hmm. I have more to discuss, but I'd love to come back and talk a little bit about Game Pass at some point. But let's talk about the game a little bit before I do that. So as we already hinted at, and Emma may have actually said this, and I was too busy looking up the Game Pass thing to listen. It's on Xbox One and Windows, which are the two systems I do not have access to.
Yeah.
Like, I suppose if you want to put me at something like a Sega Genesis, yeah, I can't play that. You're right. But I assumed that this part, because of the whimsical title, I assumed that it would be on Switch.
Well, the first one is on Switch now.
Yeah.
I think it came out on Switch like a year or a year and a half after Xbox. Since a lot of both Sony and Xbox seem to be into timed exclusivity now, which good for them, I guess. So I actually did get the first one to play a little bit of, which was fun.
That was glowing. Ooh.
Playing this and Control, I think I've just come to the conclusion that I'm just bad at video games. And I'm sorry that it's taken me, 2.5 years since this podcast started or whatever, to come to this scintillating conclusion. I
hate to break it to you, it's more like 3.5 years.
Time is fluid right now. I had to really think about how long. I was like, 2017, math, who cares? But no, I mean, most of the platforming in it, you can sort of take your time with. And then I got stuck on more of like a Celeste-like, frantic run. I even turned the difficulty down to easy after about my 15th try, and I still couldn't get through it.
Yikes. I
think I need to stop going after the items, or some of the items, which, like, in Celeste, if I was struggling, I never bothered with the strawberries, because they're just the strawberries. But in this, it's, like, actually, like, experience points that you're picking up, so they're a little harder to leave behind, because by getting more of them, the game will get easier for me.
Right.
Yeah. But I think I just need to get through it. But yeah, it seems to go back and forth in that you have, like, traversal parts, and then every once in a while you get, like, a chase sort of sequence, I guess.
Anyway, for those of you who haven't heard of the game, as Emma described, it's a platformer Metroidvania.
Whatever that means.
I like saying it because it's like I have a genre for it, but I have to look up what a Metroidvania is every time.
It doesn't mean anything.
I don't have to look it up. I know what a Metroidvania is. It's just like, it's like when I'm doing logarithms when I'm teaching. I have to double check myself. Anyway, tangent. In Ori and the Will of the Wisps, you play as Ori, a guardian spirit, jumping around and solving puzzles. And in this one, there's some combat, which I think there isn't in the one Emma is playing.
No, there's combat. There's not melee combat.
Got it. There's melee combat.
You have little energy bursts, basically.
So basically, in Ori and the Will of the Wisps, you and your buddies are raising a baby owl with a damaged wing named Ku. Ku seems to be the child of someone who's probably significant in the game Emma is playing, but I don't know.
I assume there's another owl.
We would
that
hope,
I haven't met yet.
Right? For a baby owl. Anyway, eventually, like, you're raising Ku. You manage to teach Ku to fly, even though Ku has a broken wing. But you and Ku are separated in a storm, and Ku is eventually attacked by, like, the outcast owl, who's scary, and dies. Dark.
Yeah.
One of your friends, I think, also dies pretty early on. So,
well, in the first one, like, your mom dies.
Great.
Like, at the beginning.
Great.
So.
Tone set.
Pretty sure the mom is alive again by the time this one starts, though. So.
Well, death doesn't seem to be super permanent in this world, because the spirit willow, like the voice of the forest, seems to be able to revive people. Only problem is, right now, the spirit willow, voice of the forest, is too weak to do that, to revive Ku. So Ori needs to go collect 5 wisps, to power up the tree again. So the game is you doing that, basically. And then it becomes the golden light. And then there's a twist at the end. I won't spoil it. It's a pretty new game. But there's a twist.
There's a twist in it. That's already a spoiler, Madelyn. You just told them there's a twist.
Yeah, I knew that.
No
as I was
stories
saying
have
it.
twists.
Look, my notes have the twist in it, and it was only as I was talking through this that I was like, maybe I shouldn't do this. So
yeah, I would hold back on it.
So I'll hold off. But there's a twist. That's all I'll say.
The difference, one of the big differences between this and the Blind Forest is that, which I mean, if it's 2D animation in the Blind Forest, it's very good, because I kind of thought it was 3D. But apparently in the Blind Forest, it's a 2D animated game, whereas Will of the Wisps uses 3D models and a layered background for their stuff.
They're very beautiful games. That's one of the things they get really good press about, is they seem to take a lot of pride in doing mostly 2D stuff as well. From what I was reading, that the developers seem to think, 2D is mostly kind of a static medium right now, and they're trying to push the envelope forward, which is exciting, as someone who's always kind of rolling my eyes at, whatever, the triangles are really impressive, right? But
there are sure a lot of triangles in that thing.
But as someone who's kind of always just a little bit rolling my eyes at the constant push towards realism, it's cool to see a studio that's so excited about pushing forward with more exciting graphics in a more stylized way. Not that you can't have stylized triangles. I'm sure that you can. Just maybe not on Xbox. We can't say.
Yeah.
Apparently, I thought, so talking more about the studio, which is Moon Studios, which, number one, Moon Studios way ahead of the social distancing game. I don't know if you saw that. They don't have a base. Like, they're all remote.
Well, yeah, they don't. They've never had a base.
That's what I'm saying. Way ahead of the game.
I think that that's not entirely uncommon, especially for smaller game studios.
Fair enough. But they also seem to be real perfectionist. A bunch of different articles I read talked about their iterative polish process. So they're like constantly refining and refining. Like they said that the E3 trailer went through 2,000 iterations, which feels like it has to be an exaggerate. Like, how could you possibly have time for that? But
maybe they mean they watched it 2,000 times, but not necessarily changed something every single time.
Okay, maybe. Still feels like a lot. Anyway, it makes their games like take longer, and one of the studio people described it as expensive. But if you've got that Microsoft money, I guess you can do what you want.
Yeah, that is one of the benefits of both Sony and Xbox. Nintendo doesn't really count because they also develop games themselves. But like, I don't know. Exclusivity is kind of like, it's what makes me buy PlayStation.
Yeah.
But also is kind of bad. I don't know. It makes me uncomfortable a little bit. Because gaming is already so expensive, and to be like, well, if you want to play everything, you have to buy 2 systems. makes me a little bit also uncomfortable.
I get that, but in this case, it feels less uncomfortable. Like, if it's something that the gaming company is actually putting their own money behind, it's like, yeah, you invested in it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that this one will also come to Switch pretty eventually, next couple years or so.
Well, right now it's on Game Pass, in addition to being purchasable, which you can get Game Pass for $10 a month, and you get to play just a whole load of games, basically.
Yeah, and they're always adding new stuff to it too.
And I was doing a little bit of reading about it, just because I don't think we've looked at we certainly haven't looked at a new game that's like launched directly or almost directly to Game Pass.
Yeah.
I know we talked about Sea of Thieves, which has had a little bit of a renaissance on Game Pass, I think.
Yeah.
But that certainly did not launch directly there. And I was curious because my initial reaction was like, oh, you must make so much less money, right? Which was a little bit foolish because, of course, I'm sure the economics of it are not you get some kind of percentage based on... Well, I don't know. It's really unclear, which was disappointing. I wanted more of a peek behind the curtain. But I was reading some interviews with Night School, where they were talking about how they were nervous about it with Oxenfree at first, but that it drove so much word of mouth that it got their games in front of way more people, and that actually drove sales on other platforms just because of the press and people talking about it.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a little bit of a different situation because their games are definitely on multiple platforms. It's interesting to me, and of course this is like, a pretty internal studio, so it's complicated. But yeah, it's interesting to me launching directly to Game Pass feels interesting and risky. But if Microsoft is
the difference with this one is that it's owned by Microsoft and probably got a lot of money either upfront or upon completion or both for doing it in the first place. So maybe because of that, they're less dependent on sales.
That's what I'm thinking. Otherwise, it would feel like launching directly to Game Pass. Yeah. I mean, the Night School people were talking about...
I also think about, like, Apple Arcade, which is like this, except for mobile games, and it's not... as far as I know, there are no Apple-owned game studios.
Yeah.
And I've been curious about, like, how that works for making money, too. I mean, it's certainly... You see more press about Apple Arcade games now than about a lot of mobile games.
It's true.
So maybe that helps, but then again, how does the payment process work for that?
Yeah, that's my big question, because I really get it as a way to drive eyes to your free-to-play game, or your game that would need to be free to play. I don't know why I tried to distinguish that with air quotes, which is useless for a podcast, but hopefully
you had a different tone of voice.
Hopefully you heard it, listeners. It makes sense as a way to like drive eyes to your free-to-play game, but like at some point you have to monetize that, and maybe people enjoy it a lot more because the monetization isn't quite as pushy as it would be, or as it would need to be otherwise. I don't know. I'm really interested in these subscription-based gaming services, is basically what I'm trying to say. Because, as little grasp as I have on the economics of games normally, I feel like I have just absolutely no grasp on how these work.
Yeah.
Because it does seem, even with Game Pass, there does seem to be something that is tied to who's playing, but no one has... I need someone to leak it, basically.
I mean, most of the games I see going on there are pretty old.
Oh, sure. And I get it for the old games. Like, if it's an old game and it's tied to any kind of a series, like, yeah, throw that in there. That makes total... It's the new games that I have more questions about. Like Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Yeah. One critique I saw of this, and it made me think a little bit of like whether I actually thought that was a common thing. And that one of the criticisms, I don't remember who was writing about it, but just that there are a lot of like what they called emotional platformers now. That it didn't really do anything to distinguish itself from the pack except for maybe being very pretty, which maybe is enough, you know? People like pretty things. And I was trying to think about it, it's like, I can think of emotional platformers, but not like tons. Like, to put on this very vague label, you could put Celeste under there. You could put Gris.
Oh, don't start
we
that
did an
again.
episode on this and discovered how to say it, but I don't remember. Gris.
Mega Man.
I would not put Mega Man as an emotional platformer.
You say that, but after you played 20 of them, you might feel differently.
That's true. But I couldn't really think of a lot more. It does feel familiar, like a thing there's been a lot of.
There have certainly been a couple of high-profile indie games recently.
Yeah.
There is certainly more. I guarantee if we went back through our episodes list, we would find more.
Probably, yeah. Anyway, it is very pretty. I do, like, it seems like it's mostly made for people who wanted more Ori, specifically. Which, you know, isn't bad.
Yep.
But yeah, you just get to be pretty cute spirit creature. Jumping at things.
And feeling things, apparently.
And feeling things.
Ooh, this mashup is going to be rough.
It's a platformer. It's a platformer where you're a bluish creature.
Which, by the way, they only picked because there were, like, more blues to choose from on NES, by the way.
For Mega Man, yeah.
Which is so funny. Okay, you're a bluish platforming creature. Sure.
You're the spirit of a broken down robot.
Okay.
And you feel you need to fix yourself so that you can reattach yourself to your body.
I think the spirit of a robot is already a pretty big stretch here, but go on. Like, we've jumped right past free will and into, like, souls.
We're past the question of, are robots human? The answer is yes in video game land. We've just accepted that. They have souls, whatever. Move on. So you have to go on a journey to find the parts that you need at different laboratories throughout the world. But it's like spiritual robotics. Right? So you don't just need, like, gears. You need, like, the gear of compassion.
Oh, I don't. Okay, sure.
the gauntlet of fear. And each of the laboratories are sort of themed around the emotion that you must
sure.
bring back with you.
Yeah.
To the broken down robot body.
Great.
That is you belong to as its soul.
Okay.
That's my proposal.
What's, like, the final boss?
Yourself.
No.
You revive the robot, but now it's grown a new soul. That's not you.
How did it do that?
And it's like you're like it's nobody.
I knew that was coming. I know.
And so it fights you in order to now have its new consciousness, and then it banishes you in the end. It kills you.
I can't wait for Clickbait Boyfriend to listen to this. He's gonna hate it.
What? That's good.
You said the word consciousness, and like my ears pricked up. Anyway.
There's robots. There's some tragedy. There's some beauty. There's some spirits.
Yeah, what does the art style of this look like?
It's it's kind of like a mechanical world, but then
Steampunk.
like, yeah, there's lots of like glowy bits though. Like, it's big on the lights.
Okay, yeah.
Right, like there's
Freshman dorm room.
lanterns and street lamps and all sorts of lights.
Okay.
Type stuff, but it's sort of mechanically at the same time.
Okay.
Like, it's like pretty steampunk.
Can I tweak it? Do you have to be looking for, or can we think that you're looking for like your partner robot's soul, and it ultimately turns out to be your soul, or something? Like, could it be a twist?
Okay.
Like, we think that the robot on the ground that you keep, like, we don't realize that you're a soul robot.
Ah, I see.
Till the
You
end.
just think you're a weird blue glowy robot.
Well, we'll turn down the glow a little bit. But yeah. What do you think about that?
It's good. It's got a twist in there.
Yeah. In the end, it's really you that you're trying to revive. Not because you feel love for yourself. Deep love. So that's self-love. I'm not sold on this. I don't know if I have anything better. But
Come on.
like,
I think that there would be a lot of think pieces about it.
there's something to the, like, like, it's like a quest for free will, or, like, do robots, like, have souls? There's something, like, Turing-testy about this.
I just think there've been so many stories that are like, do robots have souls, that it's not really worth writing a story about robots unless the answer is just like, yeah,
Like, you're
or
just
no,
gonna play as
from
a
the
robot
start.
soul.
Like, I just think that, well, there's so much ground covered right now with, like, the question of whether they do, that I feel like there is more fertile ground in, like, just picking an answer from the start and then writing the story, you know?
Yeah. What's the name of the robot? I feel like that's important.
Ori the Knuckle Boy.
No! You can't even Corey. What's wrong with you?
Stick.
No.
Like rock. Stick.
No. Can you be named Reglaman? No. I wouldn't.
Reggie.
Yeah, it's just an open plea to Nintendo. Be like, please, produce our game. His partner's name is Doug.
Reggie and Doug. The robots with souls.
Right, when they're revived, they turn out to be like Dumb and Dumber robots. They lose all of that spiritual enlightenment. I'm not sold on this, but I don't... Mega Man is too... Not to... I don't mean this as a knock on the rich Mega Man lore, but Mega Man is too simple to mash well with another platformer, I feel like. So, kudos for creating something that will generate some thought, perhaps.
Come on. I think it's pretty good.
You mentioned that article being like, the emotional platformer is kind of trite. And I was like, what is this?
I like the thematic clash of the robotic and the spiritual, you know?
Yeah.
It's good there.
Well, folks, this has been another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
If you liked what you listened to today, you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Talk This Podcast, and we're on YouTube at Talk This Sisters. So check it out there. We'll see if we share the hideous cover art for Mega Man this week. Maybe I will, if I feel like inflicting that upon the world during these trying times. But you should also check out our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read more about the show, see the games that are in the hat that Emma's about to pull from, read about us, and check out the blog, where you can read long-running series, Click Good Boyfriend, where my boyfriend is playing Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. I know I said last time that the last one was coming up. It's still coming up. That's still true. And also Split Screen, where Emma and I are watching Coffee Prince, which Emma just posted yesterday, the Shrek episode of that, which is really worth a watch, even if you don't watch the rest of the show. And also My Hero Academia. And various other stuff. There's other blog content coming soon, too. Finally, most importantly, if you like the show, why not subscribe? We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora, Podcasts online and on the app. The app is also online. What I meant is on the computer and on the app. Pod Queen. That's made up. Any place you can find podcasts, you can find Talk This. And that way you won't even have to remember to download it on Sundays at noon. It'll just be there waiting for you, ready to serenade your ears. So with that, Emma, it's time to pick the games for 2 weeks from now.
Yep. Our old game will be Big Brain Academy.
Yes! Oh, I'd forgotten about Big Brain Academy. Oh, that's going to be impossible to mash up.
And our new game is going to be Demon X Machina.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice. I do feel like Big Brain Academy already is a demon from a machine. So, works out well.
Works out well.
And Emma, what will we be discussing next week?
Next time we'll be talking about localization, which will be anything from text translations to the way games change in different regions to the stuff like Mega Man's box art in terms of how you try to appeal and fail to appeal to different regions of the world. It's more like a C+. Yes, to stuff like that as well. Even the way that Animal Crossing villagers sound different in English and Japanese, you might say.
It's going to be a fun episode, folks, so definitely make sure you tune in. But for now...
Do you want to sign us off?
Yeah, that's it for this week's episode of Talk This. I hope that this